everyone, and welcome back to McFly's Movie House. As always, I'm your host, Marta McFly, and for today's episode, I have a special guest on. I'm talking to writer-director Laura Adkin, a veteran in the film industry who began her career almost 20 years ago. She's produced numerous films that have played at film festivals around the world, and her directorial debut, The Goodnight Kiss, won Best Short Film at the Edmonton International Film Festival. Laura has now released her first feature film, Reuniting, which she directed and wrote, and which I am dying to discuss today. The film had its world premiere at the Austin Film Festival and should be playing in theaters in the US by the time our episode comes out. So I urge everyone to go watch it. I saw it here in Vancouver in mid-March. It's a film that I think I just watched at the most perfect point in my life. I was really going through some personal stuff specifically that week, and I just went to this film, resonated with it so much. Tears were shed. So let me explain the movie quickly before I introduce Laura to all of you. So Reuniting. It sees a group of six best friends who were once close, yet life has taken them in different directions, and they decide that they want to get together for a weekend trip and celebrate their 25th college reunion. And things aren't what they seem initially, as we find out. And the film plays out, to me at least, like a second coming of age that many adults face when they start mulling about their pasts and missed opportunities and just the jarring reality of the passage of time. And Laura handles this subject matter so well. She also incorporates humor into the mix. So it just makes everything seem so human. So without further ado, I'm welcoming Laura to the pod. Hello, Laura. Congratulations on the
Hi.
release. How are
Thank
you?
you. I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy you're
Excellent.
here to talk about this. It's just a fantastic movie,
Oh, thank
and
you.
of course. And before we get into the nitty gritty about the movie, this podcast is obviously a space for uncovering cinema's hidden gems. So
Mm.
I always ask my guests, what have you been watching recently? Do you recommend anything to all of us listeners?
Awesome. Well, I'm Canadian, so what I'm watching the most right now is hockey because it's the playoffs, which is dramatic in and of itself. But actually, I am watching a new show on Hulu called
Mhm.
Under the Bridge.
Oh,
And it's really fantastic. I'm really enjoying it a lot. A good friend of mine, Nimisha Mukherjee, directed one of the episodes, and it's a true story about this girl named Rena Verk, who back in '97, I want to say, was beaten and murdered by a group of girls at her school, and it's really interesting to watch because like I remember that it was in Victoria, which is kind of close to Vancouver, and where like all my family lives and stuff. And I remember she was the same age as me, so I remember this story like really impacting me as like a young person, being like, oh my gosh, like this stuff only happens in like in the movies or in a bigger city or whatever. And so I remember that really affecting me, and so being able to watch the show now is great. And the performances of these kids, like all of the girls that play like the group of girls that bully her, and the actress that plays Rena, incredible performances. So I highly recommend Under the Bridge.
wow. And that's on Hulu, you said, right?
Yeah, it's on Hulu, and then in
Uh-huh.
Canada, I think it's coming out on Disney Plus at some point. It's not
Gotcha.
out yet in Canada.
I'm gonna check that out. I'm assuming that's gonna be a limited release, most likely.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
it's 8 episodes. The story is pretty self-contained.
Yeah. Cool. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. I'm gonna definitely check that out.
Hmm.
But let's kick things off. So, can you talk a little bit just about the idea of how reuniting came to you, and specifically that process of exploring process of aging and that second coming of age?
So a lot of different factors came into me getting this idea off the ground. So, I love 80s and 90s ensemble dramas. I love The Big Chill, Steel Magnolias, Breakfast Club, like
Yes.
St. Elmo's Fire, all of these movies, I loved them. And I remember thinking, like, why don't we make these movies anymore? Like, I didn't remember seeing movies where people just talk. and have relationships and, you know, deal with things through like witty, irreverent dialogue, but deal with like really deep subject matters and things that are going on for them in that moment at that point in their life. So that had been in the back of my mind for a while, that I wanted to tell some sort of movie like that. And then my day job, my side hustle, is I run and teach at an acting school. And so we have students coming in all the time, and a lot of the time they're kind of like 18, 19, and they're so excited, and they're going to be actors, and they just, anything is possible for them. And at the same time that I was sort of looking at this and going like, okay, this is really interesting. My stepson was also graduating high school, and I was thinking about him and all the possibilities that he had. That reminded me of me when I was 18, and what I wanted and what I planned and the big dreams that I had. And then I started reflecting on where I am now and how I got there. And I just thought it was really interesting to just sort of play with that a bit. And so that was kind of the first seeds of like, why don't we talk about that? Like, you know, I don't see people of that age, 40s, 50s, on screen unless they're like playing someone's mom, right? Or like grandma.
Rude.
You turn 40 in Hollywood and you're someone's grandma already.
Exactly.
And yeah, and I thought like we have all these coming of age films, and it's all like you turn 18 and then you've come of age. That's it. You're done. And like
Figure it
that's
out.
that's the least interesting time of your life, I
Mhm.
think. So yeah, so that's kind of how it all came together.
I love that. That's so true. For me, especially before I started movie, my favorite coming of age was Frances Ha, and she's in her
Mm,
early 20s, and it's like, how many times can I watch this 21-year-old?
yeah.
But it's a great movie. But to kind of piggyback on that answer as well, so I agree with you. Having this intimate dialogue, having these talking movies, that's so
Mhm.
important, especially in the sea of blockbusters that we have. So, can you talk a bit about why you think it's important to have movies like this being made when
Mhm.
we do have all the Marvels and all of this, which I'm not saying I don't like, but there
Mhm.
should be
I
space for both.
Yeah, I agree too. Like, if anyone wants to hire me to direct a Marvel movie, I am there in a second. And I love watching them. And it's just, yeah, I think what's great about films is there's different movies for different moods, right? Movies do different things. There's movies that are just fun, right?
Mhm.
Like, I remember after COVID, the first movie I went and saw was the new Top Gun movie. And I was like, oh, right, movies are fun. Like, I'm just going to
Mhm.
eat my popcorn and watch this thing and not think too hard. And then sometimes you want to watch a movie that makes you like feel your feelings. And so I think it's important to have both. And I think it's important to me that people feel reflected on screen, right? That people can connect. And that's why I love ensembles, because there's so many different personalities, and you can look at this ensemble and go like, oh, I really connect with this character or this character. And so that for me was really important, is to have these different life experiences. And then, you know, everyone having their grass is green moment as well, I think is really important. Like, if I had done that, it would have been better. But you did that and I did that and whatever. So yeah,
No, I
that's
love
sort of
that. And
that.
you cover that so well in the movie, especially that last point that you bring up. My favorite scene in the movie was when the girls are sitting and they're smoking a joint together
Yeah.
and drinking, and just the conversation that they're having, and it's so real. I find that I have that with my friends sometimes too. Like, what are we
Yeah.
doing? Where are we going? But I do want to quickly touch on the premiere that you had at the Austin Film
Oh yeah.
Festival. Can you share more about that? How was that experience?
It was really great. I think community is my favorite part of being a filmmaker, and the Austin Film Festival is one of my absolute favorite film festivals. If you have not gone, go to
I
this
need to.
festival. It's so amazing, and it is a writers focused festival. So everything is about script. They have an amazing writers conference. People, like amazing people, go there and speak, and it's great. And they have been really really supportive of my career. I went there back in, I want to say like 2012 maybe, like at least 10, 12 years ago. And I just went by myself, which was like crazy for me at the time. And It was awesome. It was amazing. And I met people that I still see every year when I go back. And
Wow.
I was inspired and I'm like, this is what I want to do. That's sort of when I was like still acting and that was my main thing. And going to Austin really kind of shifted my perspective about being a storyteller. So that was really important to me. And then with two of my shorts, they programmed it, they were in competition. And so I just have spent a lot of time building relationships with that festival. And so going there was so special. It was so special to have all of my friends there, and so many people like flew from Vancouver, where I'm from. And my best friend, who is not in the film industry at all, she brought her baby because like she's still breastfeeding. So she's like, I'm coming and I'm bringing my baby. So she's like brought her baby to Austin, Texas.
Yes.
And he like came into the bar. It was great. She's like, can I bring my baby to the bar? And I was like, it's Texas. I think you can kind of do whatever you
To
want.
anything.
So having it there was great. And it was, I'm not going to lie. I don't like watching my films with an audience.
Oh,
It's very stressful.
I can imagine. I don't like listening to my podcast either. So.
Right? It's like, and I've seen it so many times, but I did want to watch it that one time. And so my husband, who's in the film, he plays Danny, he insisted on sitting next to me, which he now realizes is a terrible mistake. Normally when I watch my own stuff, I like to be in the back corner alone. And so I was just like, I was like hitting him if like something wasn't what I wanted, or like if it's, I don't know. It was a little bit stressful, but the aftermath of it was amazing.
I take that the feedback was just incredible afterwards.
It was.
Yeah,
It really
yeah.
was. It's like, I mean, to premiere at a film festival is, anyone who's been to a film festival knows, it's really the most supportive crowd. It's people who either have their own film there and so they know how hard it is to make a film, or they're there because they love film.
Yeah.
So film festivals are my favorite. They're the best.
Me too. I mean, even the local one, the Vancouver International Film Festival that we have this
Yeah.
past year, there were some moments where I just had chills. Just the crowd erupting in applause, and it's beautiful. But yeah, as you were saying, so you're a fan of The Big Chill. I know this movie is being compared to The Big Chill as well.
Yeah, which is great. I love that.
Yeah, me too. It's a great movie. But are there any other talking movies that are your favorites? I know you mentioned Steel Magnolias, The Breakfast Club. I'm personally a fan of the Before trilogy, for example.
Yeah, those are great as well. The other movie that really kind of reinvigorated my idea of doing a film like this is a film that I like. I'm not sure how many other people liked it, but oh my gosh, what's it called? It's Sean Levy. This Is Where I Leave You. This is
I
what I
haven't
think
seen
this
that.
Yeah, so I watched it at the Toronto Film Festival, I don't know, maybe 2014. And
Uh-huh.
it was the first movie I had seen in a long time that reminded me of these movies. It's with Jane Fonda, Jason Bateman, Tina
Okay.
Fey, Corey Stoll, Adam Driver.
Oh,
And
huge fan.
yeah, like and it's a great cast. And the idea of the film is the patriarch of this family dies, and his last wish was that they would all come and sit Shiva. And so all of these siblings that don't really get along and haven't been in a room together for a really long time are all forced to sit Shiva for 7 days with Jane Fonda's their mom. And
Oh boy.
yeah, it's a great film.
Yeah.
And that was one of those movies that I watched and I'm like, I haven't seen anything like this since those 80s and 90s movies.
I'm gonna check that out. I've been on a kick of watching movies like this. I watched
I love it.
Day Trippers, I think twice in the past month. Like it's
Oh,
incredible.
nice.
It's Greg Matola who did Superbad, which is such
Nice.
a
I have not
weird
seen that movie.
transition.
I'll write that down too.
Definitely. But I was also listening to an interview with you where you mentioned seeing Jurassic Park as a kid. You said it was huge for you. Did you come from a film obsessed family, or was there like a specific movie your parents showed you that then helped spark your passion?
I mean, the first movie I ever saw in theaters was Little Mermaid. 1989, I went in the movie theater, and that was the first one that my mom took me to. So I grew up with a single mom, only child, and she's a flight attendant. So, she was like busy and tired and had things to do. And so, we watched a lot of movies, and that was something that we did together, and I loved. Oh my gosh. I would drive her so crazy. We would go to the video store. I don't know how old you are. I don't know if you
I'm in
remember.
my 30s. Yeah, I do.
Okay, great. So do you kind of remember video stores? Yeah?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Half of your audience is like, what are you talking
Yeah,
about?
exactly.
But we used to go to the video store, and I used to make her rent like the same movies all the time. When I was really little, I used to rent Teddy Ruxpin all the time, and she's like, oh my God, I do not want to watch this again. But I was really into the storytelling of it. And this is slightly embarrassing because it makes me sound a little bit dumb.
Please.
But I was very little. So I used to think when I would watch TV that the commercials were there so that they could make up the rest of the show.
I love that.
So
Makes
every time
sense.
I'd watch something that I'd seen before, I was like thinking maybe it would be different.
Honestly, if you're a kid, it makes sense. It does. Yeah.
And so I loved like so Jurassic Park was really the first movie that I went to, and I sat there and I really like had like a visceral reaction to it in a way that I had never had before. And again, my poor mother had to take me so many times because I wasn't old enough to go by myself.
Yeah.
At one point, she was like almost in tears with the ticket person. Like, she's like, "Can I just send my daughter in here by herself?" And he's like, "No, you must go with her." She's like, "Oh, this movie."
How much Jeff Goldblum for one person?
Right? She's like, "I can't." But, you know, my mom and I went to a lot of movies. She took me to a lot of movies, and I'm so grateful for that. And, you know, not just watching TV and movies at home, but like going to a theater and having that theater experience. I saw like all the Disney movies in theater.
Wow.
Like Aladdin, Lion King, like, you know, when they re-released Pinocchio, that was very scary. I was like, oh God, this movie. Yeah, just like even to this day, my favorite thing to do is go and sit in a movie theater. I think it's the way that movies are meant to be watched. I think, you know, I know a lot of people are trying to like limit screen time for their kids and stuff, which I think is really important. But instead of just like, oh, here, go watch something on the iPad, it's like, let's all sit down together and let's watch a movie together. Because for me, the most amazing thing about watching a movie is watching it with other people and having like a collective experience and laughing at the same time as someone else laughs, or, you know, all of that. So, you know, I love going to the theaters. Please, everyone, go to the theater. Go see the movies that you want to see in the theater. Please, 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 please. And turn off your friggin' phone.
Oh my God, yes.
I can't.
I just had an experience last week. Someone next to me was on their phone the entire time with like a full light shining. Like, go home. Enough.
Yeah. Oh, my husband, I think it was one of the Marvel movies or whatever. And it was like the opening weekend, and we were in like one of those big theaters, and we were at the top because I like to sit at the top. And some guy like almost down at the bottom of like the stadium seating, my husband got up, walked down the stairs, and told him to turn his phone off. Yes. And then everyone clapped, and then he went back up.
The hero we need.
Right? Yeah. So don't be on your phone.
No, never. Speaking of theaters, though, I also learned that your first job was at a Cineplex, and you became a projectionist. That to me is so cool. Did you ever watch anything like for yourself, or was it only strictly limited for people that were coming?
Oh my gosh, I love movies, love watching movies. I tell everybody, if you love movies, go get a job in a movie theater. It's the best job. Yeah, I started out in the concession, and then I was an usher, then I did the box office, and then I moved up into being a projectionist back when we actually had film. Yeah, so my job was to cut and splice film together, because when the prints would come to the theater, they would come in like 5 or 6 reels, well, between 5 and 8 reels depending on how long the movie was. So you have to put that together, then you have to build like what they call trailer packs, so all the trailers would come individual, and you'd have to like put them all together, then you have to put it on the print, and then you'd have to start the movie, so you'd have to like thread the projector and go through the thing and start the movie. And then I was at the Granville 7 Cinemas, which doesn't exist anymore, but we had 7 screens, obviously it's called the Granville 7, on like 5 different levels. So you'd be in like one booth, and then an alarm would go off, and you'd be like, ah, and then you're gonna run down the stairs. And one thing that would happen a lot is, so the center of this is like a really weird thing for people that aren't watching this and they're just hearing it because I'm like using my hand so much. But in the center where you put the film through is
Uh-huh.
called the brain. And a lot of the time the film would wrap around it. So you'd have to go in and like spin it like really, really, really fast the
Wow.
other way. Otherwise the film would stop. And anyone who was in a movie theater in like the 90s or before experienced the time when the print stopped because the light is so bright that it burned the print. And
Wow.
so, did you ever experience that in a movie theater when the
No.
print caught on fire?
Not caught on fire, but recently I went to a screening where they brought in this old movie on like a 35 millimeter print and it just
Cool.
stopped playing halfway through the movie. So I wonder what that would have been.
Yeah, I mean, when it burns, you like see it. It's like
Oh,
burning on screen. Look it up on YouTube later. I'm sure
wow.
someone has a video
Yeah.
of it. But yeah, and then so if that happened, you'd have to like one person would have to go and be like, "I'm sorry, everybody, for the inconvenience. Just wait 1 minute." And then you'd have to go and you'd have to cut it and splice back together and like start the movie again. So it
Wow.
was so fun, and I would sit in the little projection booth and like watch the movies with the like the flickering. Like it was just
Hmm.
like it was magical. I think back at it now, and in the moment it was just like cool, it's whatever what I do. But I have so much nostalgia for that time of like
Wow.
being able to watch every movie.
Wow. Yeah, you had your little Cinema Paradiso moment, like the little boy who's
Totally.
looking through the. Oh,
Oh
I
yeah,
love that. I'm
that was me
so
all
happy
the
I
time.
asked you this question because in my mind, I didn't even think that it would have been that, like with actual film. I was just
Hmm.
thinking you just go and,
Oh no, it
wow.
was like right before. So I started working in November of 2000, so 24
Hmm.
years ago, and film had just stopped being like a hazardous job. They had changed
Gotcha.
what they made. So before I was there, it was like it was a really difficult job to have because you were working with hazardous materials. It was unionized. It was this whole thing. And so being a projectionist went from being, it was all these like 40, 50-year-old dudes doing it to like me.
I love that
Yeah.
though. You go.
Mhm.
But let's get back to the movie, although
Okay.
I love that. But I want to commend just your fantastic script. It was
Oh, thank
emotional.
you.
Yeah, it was raw. I cried, of course. I saw other people crying or heard them, I should say.
Yeah.
Um, but what I really loved about it was just how real it was. It really reminded me, I mentioned it earlier, kind of just those conversations I have with my own closest friends
Yeah.
where, shit's hitting the fan. And what do? You just sit around and you make jokes
Mhm.
and you make kind of light of it just so you can
Yeah.
get through it together. And this movie had that too, and it was authentic. So I'm just
Thank you.
curious how you managed to bring that authenticity to the script. Was it based on your own chats and friendships that you cherish?
Yeah, I think so. I think, to me that's something that is really important is to find a way to build that relationship with those people who, they're actors and you want to give them as much as possible to get them like solidified into their roles. And I think dialogue is really important. And so, for me, the way that I work is I write everything. I write down, I like word vomit the dialogue. So my first drafts of my scripts are like insanely long because I'm like, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? What's happening? And they have these like long, like Shakespearean length monologues. And then I go back in and I'm like, okay, what are they actually saying? What are they actually wanting? And then I pare it down. And so, yes, I mean, that's always been something that I've been good at is creating dialogue. I struggle with other things, but dialogue is something that I've always been quite good at. And then one of the great things is once you start getting actors involved. So everything sounds great in your head and I say the dialogue out loud to myself. So I'm sitting there just like talking to myself a lot. My husband's like, "What?" I'm like, "No, I'm just writing." Uh,
Love.
living with a writer is a very weird thing because most of the time is not actually writing. It's just
Yep.
doing other weird stuff. Yeah, and then once we got the actors involved, even before we had our cast, I wanted to do table reads with actors I wasn't planning on casting, just to hear the dialogue out loud. And like I'm very lucky, Vancouver is a very small town. I've known people for a really long time. I have access tons of friends that are actors. And so I had multiple groups of actors come and read the script.
Oh, wow.
So that, yeah, we did these full table reads, and it was during COVID. So we did it all on Zoom, which was actually better, honestly, because I could
Mhm.
turn my camera off and like sit in the corner and be like, oh, that's a terrible line, Laura. Why did you do that? And like berate myself for my terrible writing. But so helpful to hear things out loud and see
Mhm.
what things worked and what didn't. And then, when you bring the cast on board, then you make adjustments and stuff based on the character. Because I think one thing that's really important is the script belongs to you until you bring actors. And then the actors own that character. That character
Wow.
is theirs. And so now it becomes a collaboration. And there's dialogue that has to be in there because it like moves the plot forward. But I love that collaboration where an actor's like, oh, this is like I can't say this very well. It's like it's not whatever. So we talk about it and we're like, okay, well, this is why you are saying this. So like, what do you think would work? And so that happened a little bit as well. People always are like, oh, is there lots of improv? I'm like, no, no, not really. There's moments where people add something or
Yeah.
whatever, but the actors are really collaborative, and most of what is on screen, I would say 90% of what is on screen is what was on the page. So.
Wow. I mean, you mentioned your acting background as well. Do you
Mhm.
think that that also strengthened your ability as a writer too?
Yeah, I think as a writer and as a director, I
Okay.
think anyone who wants to be a director should go take an acting class. I
Mm.
think understanding actors, understanding how they think, how they process stuff, what it actually takes. I have so much respect for actors. What they do, it's so vulnerable, and it's a lot, right? And so and it's the most important thing. You can have the most beautiful shot in the world, but if you don't have like a performance, like who cares? Like really, who cares if
Hmm.
you don't have characters that people care about? And you can have a great script, but if you can't communicate with the actors with what you want. So I think my acting journey, and I still act a little bit, I now it's like my super fun like side thing that I do, which is great. I'll like go on set and I'm like, oh, I'm not in charge of anything. Oh,
Amazing.
that's super expensive. They shouldn't be doing that. Not my problem.
I love that. That's amazing. Oh, well, I think another part of the film's success next to the stellar script is the ensemble cast, as you mentioned
Yes.
earlier, who, while they're great by themselves, at the same time, they play off of one another and they hold space for one another. So was their connection immediate as soon as they started working together? I know a lot of them came from similar projects or just knew
Yeah.
each other through the grapevine.
Yeah, there was. And, a film like this, especially doing something on a lower budget, if everyone didn't get along, it could have been a disaster. It could have gone really, really badly. And that's why for me, casting is so important. And I knew almost all of these actors ahead of time or knew of them. And, I knew that everybody really wanted to be on board. I spent a lot of time talking with the actors. Well, other than Carmen, who plays Natalie, who only came on board 3 days before. So we didn't have
Oh,
as many
wow.
conversations. But everyone else, I had lots of conversations with them about their character, about the script, about what I was wanting to get out of it. And again, they're all like so talented, these actors. And they took time to meet with each other and talk about their stuff like without me. All of this stuff, all this pre-production stuff that we did, I think was really important. And then we just like hoped that it worked, and then it did. Like, I don't know.
Yay.
Yay.
What was your favorite scene to film?
Oh my gosh. There's so many scenes. I think the most rewarding scene to film was probably the big reveal scene,
Mm.
which when people watch it, they'll know what I mean. It's a 9.5 page scene, which
Wow.
in film is a very long scene.
Yeah.
And what was great about it is all of the actors trusted me, they trusted each other. And I made it really clear that we weren't going to overshoot the scene. So what I mean by that is doing a lot of coverage, doing a lot of takes, doing a lot of, setting the camera up in different ways, because I really wanted everyone to feel like they could give 100% every time, even when they weren't on camera. And I think that really helped the performances of everybody else, because a lot of the time, especially in television, when you're shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting, you can't give everything when you're not on camera, because you'll just exhaust yourself. And so being able to have everyone be connected and go and just do it every single time created like this palpable just intensity in the air. And we shot a really short day that day. We only shot for 7 hours, and then I sent everyone home because the actors, like, they gave everything, and then I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, we're done, we're going home now. And there was a moment that was really, really cool for me. Well, first of all, the first take we did, I freaking moved my foot and my foot went into the shot, and I was like, oh my god. I was like, oh my God, should I just stop this? Because I just put my leg into the scene. Oh gosh, darn it. But that's okay. We didn't use that take anyway. It's just, I was like, oh my God, Laura, like amateur hour over here.
Of course.
Um,
Bound to have
but
noise.
right. So we're doing the scene, we're filming it, and I looked down the hall at one point, and the majority of our crew were 20 to 25-year-olds, right? Not
Mhm.
really my target demographic for the film.
Mhm.
But I looked over and we had one monitor that the makeup people were using, and everyone was at the monitor. Everyone, the entire crew. No one was at crafty or
Wow.
wandering around or on their phone or whatever. Everyone was watching these performances because they could hear it, like, because
Mhm.
they were right there, but they were watching it on the monitor. And that was such a cool moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, these actors are doing something that is like affecting the crew. And that was a really cool moment.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, wow. That honestly just touched me so much. I also feel like I'm 31, and I noticed that
Mm,
when after I turned 30, it's the same as in your 20s, but a bit more life experience and a bit more money. So,
yeah.
I honestly also think that, yeah, I mean, this movie may have a cast that's supposed to be in their 40s and their 50s, but I really do
Hmm.
think that it can affect people in their 20s and in their 30s because it's just so relatable. Again, it's yeah, it's a powerful film.
Yeah, I did an interview with someone from like their college newspaper or something, and she
Hmm.
was 19. And one of the things that she said, which I thought was so cool, is that when she was watching it, she was wondering if she would still be friends with the people she was friends with now in 20 years. And she's like, "Yeah, I wonder what we'll all be doing." And so that was something that has been like a pleasant surprise, is the amount of
Hmm.
young people that have connected with the film. That's been really cool.
Absolutely. I think also, I mean, next to the acting and the script and all these other things, it's the stellar soundtrack that you have,
Mm,
because you included some 90s bangers. I mean,
yep.
opening to This Is How We Do It, that just sets the tone and gets the audience in the right headspace, right? So, what's one song, or I guess you could pick a couple if you want, from your college years that you and your friends still throw on when you're together and it just kind of takes you back?
I mean, Backstreet Boys. Um, if Backstreet Boys, like Spice Girls as well.
Yes.
I was a bit younger during sort of like Backstreet Boys Spice Girls days, but like that's yeah. If I hear in sync as well, like all of those
Yes.
'90s, I went to all Britney, all of it. Like it just, oh yeah, it brings me right back to like, but also like when I started going to the clubs, it was like 50 Cent, like go shorty, it's
Yes.
your birthday. Like that was like the song of the summer
Hmm.
that I turned 19.
How excited were you? Did you watch Anatomy of a Fall?
I haven't watched it yet. It's on my I've
Okay,
been so busy,
you
but it's on my
gotta.
list. It's on my
You
list.
gotta. There's the perfect usage of PIMP throughout the entire movie. It's
Oh,
just
amazing.
chef's kiss. But I was reading the press package for Reuniting, and one thing that stuck out to me was a quote from you where you said that the movie deals with characters wondering whether or not they're living their lives authentically and on their
Mhm.
own terms. So that's something I think about all the time. So what does living authentically mean to you?
I think it means like constantly checking in with yourself, constantly, being like am I enjoying this? I think one of the things that I notice a lot is people just existing, right? Where people just like exist. And I think, which is one of the reasons like a lot of my shorts and everything like have some sort of death in it. I like to talk about death a lot because I think we forget that we're going to die.
Hmm.
Because I think if we remember that we're going to die, we will remind ourselves to, do the things we want to do. Now, look, when you're 18, it's great. You can like do anything, go anywhere, whatever. Like, I get it. I have a mortgage. I have 2 mortgages now because of the film. I have a mortgage, I have bills to pay. My cat, has to go to the vet. Like, I get this. Like, we can't all just be like, in the moment, like all the time. Otherwise, we'd like get nothing done. So I do think there is a balance of that. But I think it's just checking in with yourself and being like, am I happy? My husband and I do that all the time where I'm just like, I really love our life. And it's not always like the big things that we do. Like we're just about to go on a huge like Europe trip and everything, which is super fun. But I also love our like, we have coffee in the morning together. Like that's our thing is we make coffee and our cat sits with us and we kind of talk about stuff and then we go have our day. So I don't know. I think it's just making sure that you're not stuck in a loop of things that don't make you happy because like what's the point?
I love that. I love that. So let's get even more personal if we can.
Oh
But
geez.
earlier, you mentioned 18-year-old you briefly. So I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if we go back in time to 18-year-old Laura, did the
Yes.
dreams that she have back then align with the ones that you have now? And if there was one thing you could tell her to soothe her fears about how things would pan out, what would that be?
Well, first of all, 18-year-old Laura had a lot of confidence. Like some of it was unearned, honestly. Um
I love
But
that.
I think because I do this a lot. I talk to my students about this a lot. And I think the path is what has brought me here and I'm really grateful. And that's the thing that I think is so important about setting goals and having dreams and it's actually not about achieving that thing. It's about the path. So when I was 18, I went to a performing arts high school and like everyone told me I was amazing, so I thought I was amazing, and I just assumed I would leave high school and like get a television series, and that did not happen. And that was very disappointing to me.
Oh.
But I was really serious about being an actor. I was really serious about like what I wanted, which at the time sci-fi was really big in Vancouver. So like Stargate and Battlestar Galactica and all of those shows were on.
Yes.
And so my goal was to be the lead of a sci-fi television series. So everything that I did was moving towards that. Like I
Hmm.
I went to the East 15 acting school in London. I went to
Wow.
Stella Adler in Los Angeles. I like trained, I did these things. I did like headshots where I had a leather jacket. Like I did all of these things. And I think my drive to being a better actor is the reason I'm a director. Like it wouldn't have happened otherwise. I started writing in order to write my own stuff so that I could play the characters that I wanted to play.
Wow.
I started learning how to produce so that I could make stuff that I could act in. And it was through that experience that I realized how much I actually love filmmaking and how I'm probably better at that. I'm not a bad actor, but I'm not a great actor. Like you know, I'm good. I understand. I think I understand acting more than I succeeded acting. I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know. But
Humble.
no, but I love it. And I'm not
Uh-huh.
by any means, probably my agent is going to listen to this and be like, Laura, what are you doing going on a podcast saying you're a bad actor? I'm not at all a bad actor. I book stuff all the time. But I
Of
think
course.
my skill set is really as a storyteller. And I
Hmm.
think that I don't even know if I would have figured that out had I not pursued my acting career.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I live by that too. Everything happens for a reason. I always say
Hmm.
that to myself, no matter what, no matter how hard it gets. Um,
Yeah.
but another thing I want to highlight about the movie as well is just visually striking it is. It's
Mm.
shot on Bowen Island. Just the serenity, the beauty of the nature, the woods, the ocean, yada yada yada. It's just stunning. Was there a particular wow moment for you that stuck out to you on set of just being surrounded by all of this?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like, my mom lives there, and I go there all the
Oh.
time, and I've lived on Bowen, and
Hmm.
so sometimes you forget,
Yep.
you're just like, "Okay, I'm just going to the grocery store," and you forget, and then you have those moments of quiet where you're looking out over the water, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, right. I get to live here." I feel
Hmm.
that way about Vancouver in general, like, it's
Same.
just when you get on a ferry and go to Vancouver Island, you're just like, "Holy crap, I live here." It's insane. So I think
Hmm.
for me, the most impactful moment is when we shot the whales, and that was a total accident. We were doing
Wow.
B-roll, so it was my cinematographer Sterling Bancroft, who is an incredible talent, and him and I and our first AD, and I don't even know who else was there because we were just doing B-roll. We were shooting the sailboat because we had to have
Hmm.
the sailboat at different times of day, which means you have to sit there and wait for the
Oh gosh.
light to change so that you can film it a bunch of different times. So we're just sitting there, um, eating pizza, I think. And
Nice.
all of a sudden I see this whale, and I was like, "Starling, turn on the camera." And he was like, "Oh my god, I have the wrong lens." I'm like, "I don't care." And it was a mommy and a baby humpback whale.
Wow.
And it was really special, not only because we got it on camera, we could use it at a very impactful moment in the film, but also humpback whales haven't been in that area for 20 years because of the mine. So there used to be a mine, and so there was a lot of pollution in the water, and so the whales had only just started to come back.
Wow.
And so it was the first time in, well over 20 years that there had been any humpback whales, and we just happened to catch them on film. So that
Wow.
was pretty magical.
That is. Also, I had no idea that it's been that long. Wow, I had no idea about that. Speaking of visuals as well, from what I understand, I was reading that this is the first feature film to be colored using the
Yes.
Barco HDR light steering projector. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah, it's so cool. So, look, I cannot talk about the technical aspect of this because I do not understand. Of
Fair.
all of the things that I do as a director, the
Hmm.
thing I least understand is the technical aspect of coloring.
Okay, fair, fair enough.
Right? I go like, "Yes, I like that. No, I
Yes.
don't like that." And then my DP and my colorist are like, "Let's do 64 green percentage of the 842." I'm like, "I literally have no idea what you're
Sure.
talking about." And I'm like, "Good, that's better." I'm like, "Can it be warmer or can it be
Hmm.
this or whatever?" So, but Barco has been amazing
Hmm.
because our colorist works with them, and they are creating this new projector that is like unbelievable. It's going to be
Hmm.
in all the theaters, I'm assuming, at some point. And it's just the blacks are really black, the whites are really white. It's just like it's an incredible picture to watch.
Hmm.
And so it's cool to be part of that. Like our film was the first film colored on it.
Wow.
So everything that they learned, it took us like 9 months to color our film, which is not a normal amount of time to color. But because the technology kept changing, we had to
Hmm.
keep adjusting. So we colored this film for a very long time, but it's very, very cool because now we have like a version that they can show off their projector. And
Wow.
knowing that when these projectors are used in the future, like the the stuff that they learned making our film, they'll use on other films, which is super cool to be part of, like a little bit of film history there.
Of course, yeah. I mean, yeah. When I found that out, I was like, wait a minute. But the first one,
Yeah.
that's a big thing. If you could change one thing about the film industry, what would it be?
Oh, thank you for asking me this question. I really, really, really hate the way in which we treat people in
Hmm.
general, and the way in which we push people to the brink, and we say this is an all or nothing career. 16-hour days is ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. It's unhealthy and it's unhelpful. Just because it's the way we've always done it doesn't mean that we have to keep doing it this way. It was really important on our film. We had mostly 10-hour camera days. To me, that is a normal amount of time that you should be working. A 10-hour camera day is usually 12 hours of work for most people because people have to come in to prep and people have to come in to, finish off or whatever.
Hmm.
So to ask people to work for more than 12 hours in a day is crazy. It's crazy and it's unsustainable, and you get so much burnout. And I hate this idea that we tell people like, well, okay, you can be a key grip and make lots of money, but like good luck having a family. Like that's silly. You know, I think we need to respect all of our crew members. I think we need to pay everyone fairly. I think the hierarchy on set is important because otherwise everyone would just be running around chaotically. But just because there is like a funneling system of how things are dealt with doesn't mean that you need to be shit. Oh, can I
No,
swear?
you can.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, by all
Okay.
means.
that you can be shitty with like the people that are, you know, below you. That's crazy. So to me, creating a really healthy, safe, collaborative working environment is so important. You know, I'm really grateful that I have so many crew members that have said to me that this is the best set they've ever worked on, which part of me like that makes me feel good, but it also makes me feel crappy that that's not the norm. And so if I could change anything, it would just be the way in which we function as like on set. I think, you know, people should be able to go home to their family and have a life outside of the industry. That's what
I
I
want
think.
I want a soundbite out of this. I love that answer so much. It's so isolating. I mean, I dated
Mhm.
someone who worked on set years and years and years ago. I have friends who work in the industry too, and it's so isolating and lonely because you're right.
Yeah.
There's not, you go home, you crash, you wake up in the morning, you do it again, and then it just rinse and repeat, right?
Yeah, and you get like the a lot of our crew especially like they love what they do,
Mhm.
right? They love it and they're good at it. But like we you need rest and to me it's so silly. It's like the amount of money that we pay in overtime. Just like add extra days to your shoot.
Yeah,
Like it's
it's
just do
that
that
easy.
instead.
Yeah.
But it all comes down to money. So if like that's I guess that's the key is I somehow need to convince people that it's more cost effective
Yeah.
to which I think it's possible to do because people have more energy, they're able to work, they're able to do more. So
It's
I don't
true.
know.
You get more done when you're not burnt out, right?
Yeah,
So
that's very true.
there you go. Imagine. But back to reuniting. So the film deals, as we were saying, this sort of second coming of age. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm asking you this next question selfishly.
Okay.
But if you had one piece of advice for folks in their early 30s who are starting to get those pangs of, I'm feeling kind of
Mm.
lost. What do I do? I want to make a change. What would that advice be?
Do it. Make a
Do.
change.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Like if there's something you want to do it. You know, one of the things that I see a lot at like the acting school that I run is people coming in their 30s, 40s, 50s and being like, I always wanted to do this and now I'm gonna do it. Like you're never too old to do anything because you're gonna be the same age whether you try something or not, you know? And I'm not saying like, you know, quit your job and like whatever to like be a rock star. But
Mhm.
like, if you always had a dream of being a rock star, go learn how to play the guitar. Like, go do something. You know, the one thing that drives me nuts is when people sit around complaining about stuff and don't do anything about it.
Mhm.
Like, we all have the capability to to do something that makes us happy. And whatever that is, you know, one of the things during COVID is like I wanted to learn something, right? Like I haven't learned anything new other than things in the film industry
Mhm.
since I was in high school. So I took a yoga teacher training.
Oh, wow.
It was great. I have no intention to ever be a yoga teacher, but I was like, I want to learn something.
Mhm.
So, you know, go take a night class somewhere, go do something. You know, also like put money away in your savings if you can because stuff's expensive.
So expensive and it hits you like this.
Yeah, it really does.
Always. Oh, well, can I ask what's next for you in terms of projects? And this could be anything like directing, writing, acting, et cetera, et
Yeah,
cetera.
I mean, you know, I'm really wanting to get my next feature off the ground because, you know, I started reuniting in 2019. Like, I'm ready to just explore other characters.
Hmm.
But this time, I'm really excited because I'm collaborating with a writer. So I'm not going to be writing this one, I'm directing it. And so her name is Catherine McKenzie. She is an incredible author out of Montreal. She's done a bunch of novels, like the New York Times just did a very good review on her latest book, which is called Every Time I Go on Vacation, Someone Dies, which is
Okay.
the great title of a book. And she's been she's moving a little bit into film and television world. And yeah, so we're collaborating on a female-driven heist movie.
Ooh, I'm
Yeah.
excited. Can you say anything else about it? Are you
I
getting
think I'll
mom?
just leave it at that for
Okay. Okay.
now.
Oh, I'm so curious.
But I wanted to do something with a little bit more money this time, hopefully.
Uh-huh.
But also, I love action. I love action movies. I love things that make you think. Heist
Mhm.
movies are some of my favorite movies. But adding these women and adding a revenge element in it,
Oh,
which I think is really, so it's not just about the money, it's about
yeah.
there's like some revenge in there too, and getting a group of women together to make this happen. We don't really see that very often,
Mhm.
so I think we could have a lot of fun with that.
Amazing. I'm gonna keep my eyes peeled for that. Those are all things that I love. Revenge, heist, female
Excellent.
led. Amazing.
Great.
But I guess that's all we kind of have time for today. I'm
Awesome.
gonna reiterate it again. By the time this podcast comes out, the movie should be released in the US. So please, 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 please go check out this wonderful film. Like I said, I cried, other people cried. It's powerful, really meant a lot to me. Laura, how can people support the film, support you? Do you want to shout anything out at all?
Yeah, so please follow the film at Reuniting Film. We only have Instagram because we're old, so we don't have TikTok. I don't know
Eh,
how to use it, so I've decided not to
you
learn.
don't have to.
Just and then watch it in Canada and in the US. Eventually, you'll be able to watch it on demand. So rent the movie, watch it, tell your friends, watch it with people. I just ask, please don't watch it on your phone. Please watch it on a screen that's bigger. I mean, if you only have access to your phone, I guess that's okay. But you know, and watch other movies. Just watch movies,
Yes.
support independent film, go see independent film when it's in the theater. I think that indirectly supports me because it allows me to make more movies.
Mhm.
The more movies that get supported in the major theater chains, I think is good. So you can follow me as well at Laura Adkin. I think
Cool.
that's good.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the pod today. I'm so grateful to
Thank
have had you
you.
on, Laura. Thanks.
This was so fun. Thank you so much.
Yay. Bye.